For this special component of the broadcast, I am so privileged to welcome Jennifer Berlin, military spouse and Vice President of Division Operations for the Northeast of First Command, from Army Wife Network sponsor, to talk about making financially sound decisions. Jennifer is a military spouse who experienced frequent PCS moves. Every time her husband moved, she had to search for a new job, starting and stopping with each location transition. Then one day, a First Command team member said, "What if I could tell you your resume would only have First Command on it for the rest of your career?" That made Jennifer stop and think. Since First Command is a company founded by the military for the military, she quickly fell in love with it. Now she's giving back to the same community who did so much for her. Jennifer, welcome to Army Wife Talk Radio. Very much looking forward to our conversation today.
Thank you. Nice to be here. I'm excited.
Well, for those listeners who are new to First Command, can you tell us a little bit about First Command and how you all help military families?
Absolutely. First Command is a financial planning firm focused on serving the financial needs of our nation's active duty military families. The primary service we offer is financial coaching. That means we help our clients develop a comprehensive financial plan, and we'll also help them implement it. As your life and priorities change, which they will, we coach you along the way to make sure your financial behaviors are in sync with your goals. Most people think that financial planning is a high-end service just for the wealthy. They don't think it's available to them, or if it is, that they can't afford it. But at First Command, we regularly work with young families who are just getting started. Years ago, actually, we waived our planning fees for service members and their families because we didn't want there to be any reason for a military family not to have an opportunity to have a financial plan. We know the best way to get started, the best way to get financially squared away is through a financial plan. We also know the earlier in your career you get started, the better off you'll be later.
I love that intro, Jennifer, just because I've had such a personal positive experience with First Command as a military spouse and with our military family. So help us to answer some questions about what financial coaching with First Command might look like, because I think sometimes it's a little bit intimidating to jump into that arena of help and support.
Absolutely. And it can feel that way, but let me assure you, it's not intimidating. At First Command, financial coaching means we're here to help you start with just developing a plan, a roadmap, just like a plan if you were going to go on vacation. We take where you're at today, and then we start to look at where you want to be 5, 10, 15 years from now. So what does that mean? Our financial plans are built on 3 very basic cornerstones: investments, banking in your budget, and insurance. Our financial advisors will then help you adapt your plan as your circumstances and your goals evolve. Our commitment is to be with you at every stage of your life, at the beginning of your career, all the way through ultimate retirement. Our advisors go through a rigorous training program where they develop a broad expertise ranging from debt management all the way to retirement income planning, so they can holistically look at your needs, not only where you're at today, but where you're going. Our advisors are also fiduciaries. What this really means is they're obligated to put the client's interest above not only their interest, but the interests of the company. And actually, the majority of our advisors at First Command come from the military community. The statistic changes a little bit year to year, but it's somewhere between 72 and 74% of our advisor force is affiliated with the military. What this means is we've either served, we've retired, or we're military spouses. This really uniquely helps us understand our clients' military lifestyle, their pay, and their benefits when we talk to them.
Well, that's a really empowering percentage of folks that really, quote, get the military life. I knew that you were all very well versed in that, but I did not know it was that upwards of 70+%. Really makes me feel good because that's one of the positive parts about working with First Command that I've experienced is they really do get the military life and they understand all the ins and outs and things on an LES and TSP and all the stuff with all the things. And so that really made me feel good and really made my husband and I feel empowered when we met with our advisor. But what would you say to people who are trying to make a decision about whether or not to see an advisor?
I would say I understand that the prospect of sharing your financial details can feel intimidating. For example, if there's something in your financial history or past that could be embarrassing, like high credit card debt, and you're unsure if you'll ever work out from underneath it. That's actually what we deal with every single day. We have systems and programs in place to help people dig out from where they're at. And then as they do that, reallocate those dollars to benefit them in the future, both in their short and long term goals. It's also really important to understand that financial advisors are not interested in judging. A lot of people can be embarrassed on that front too. Their focus is on gaining an understanding of what you want to accomplish so that you can construct a plan that is most effectively and efficiently going to help you pursue your family's goals. Some people may also not want to seem uninformed. With all of the access to information we have these days, we're afraid to speak up when we don't understand something, especially when it comes to finances. One of the things, I'll be honest, I am most proud about at First Command is we actually take all of our clients through a learning process in their financial planning. It's not just about telling them what to do, it's an educational process, really helping them understand why these things are important. We are all big believers that if our clients understand their what, and more specifically their own why, it gives them a better shot at long-term success and it makes them better long-term planners.
Your last point there makes my heart kind of a little warm and fuzzy, and it makes me laugh just a little because I was that person really not too long ago, probably almost 2 years ago now, sitting in the El Paso First Command office, just with kind of a glazed over look in my eyes because I'm a words person, and a lot of stuff with financial planning is numbers, but our financial advisor really took the time. Like he got out the whiteboard and the markers and was drawing me pictures so I could understand where things were going, where they needed to move, what this looks like, what our goals were. And so it was really neat to kind of have someone take that time and what you mentioned, not judge us for being like, I'm not sure what I should be doing, but I'm trying to do the right thing for my family now and in the future. So I just wanted to share that personal experience with our listeners because this is not something you guys just share on interviews. Like this really does happen for military spouses and families. You all really do take your position seriously and put us ahead of everything else to teach us some really what seems like intimidating and difficult things in a really approachable and conducive kind of way. And so thinking about how we want to make those good financial choices, what advice do you have for us military families?
Yeah, so I heard this Chinese proverb that the best time to plant a cherry tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time is today. Mm-hmm. Same thing with your finances. The best time to start was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. So start organizing your financial life so we can understand where you're at currently. And once we understand where you are today, we can start to build on that and go to where you want to go in the future. So what does that look like? If you have a paper system at home, meaning you still get statements in the mail, now would be a great time to go through those statements, reorganize folders, and possibly shred some old stuff. Change things to electronic statements. This will help reduce both clutter and the potential for fraud with things just sitting around. Create a budget. This is probably one of the most important things. List all of your expenses so you have a firm understanding of how your money is spent. This is a required first step so we can realistically plan down for the future. We have so many things these days put on auto payments, those little things like your $2.99 apps and your Netflix account and Hulu and all those things that you don't even see anymore. We got to capture all of that. Consider paperless billing, and auto pay options. This will help create a situation where you don't get behind on things or you don't miss a bill as you're PCSing. Then look ahead to big expenses. Look ahead to things like PCSs and vacation. Let's start setting aside a monthly amount to prepare for those expenses rather than have to go into debt and spend the next year paying them off. Mm-hmm. If you don't have a system, simply start with creating one. Don't waste your hard-earned money on late fees and interest charges. You've worked too hard for it.
I completely agree with that. It's amazing how some of those small things over time really add up. You're like, oh, just this month for $2.99, it's not a big deal, but over a year, 5 years, 10 years, thinking that an app you don't use or a subscription you forgot to cancel, you're like, dang, I really could have been investing that somewhere else or doing something else with it, and just capturing those items, nailing them down, and then making the decision, do we really need this? Do we use this? And is there a better place it could be going? Is really important. And Jennifer, I think that one of the things I would say that military spouses listening maybe might struggle with, they do have long-term goals that honestly seem a little bit overwhelming right now. I kind of feel like I get caught there with that analysis paralysis. We think about it and then we're like, get so overwhelmed. We're like, I don't know where to start. So what would you say to those of us, hypothetically like me, maybe back in the day, what's that first step to getting started?
Yeah, so I guess the first step is don't feel alone. So many people feel overwhelmed by things who feel really big. So let's start here. Be specific. What I mean by this is a lot of people will start their financial journey saying things like, I want to start saving money. It's very hard to measure that. If I save $1, did I achieve my goal? So instead, say things like, I want to build a savings account or an emergency fund equal to 2 months' pay. That's very specific, and it's very clear where you're at on track for that goal. More importantly, don't get overwhelmed. Break each goal into tasks that are easy to achieve and track, such as I want to start adding $25 to my savings account every month until that emergency fund is built. It's better to start small and achieve the goal and create a positive habit that you can build on as a foundation than start too big, fail, and just fall off the wagon. Then make it automatic. We set all of our bills that we owe other people to in automatic transfers. We should automatically pay ourselves too. So set up reoccurring transfers to your savings account or for long-term things like retirement in your TSP or your 401k. And when planning for spending, make sure you strike a balance. You don't want to stop living today for tomorrow, but you don't want to live so fully today that you can't live tomorrow. So a good rule of thumb is that you should live on about 80% of your earnings and pay yourself or allocate the other 20% to your financial goal, or 20%, towards your financial goals or your own financial future.
That's really some solid food for thought, thinking about that balance between the now and the later, and just really breaking it down into small chunks. I mean, that goes with any goal, whether it's weight loss, saving money like with First Command, or investing for the future, running a marathon, goodness gracious, deployments. Like if we just think and sit about a 9 or a 12-month deployment, it's overwhelming. But if we're like, okay, 1 week, let's get through this week. Hey, we're 1 week closer, and just chipping away a little bit at a time makes such a huge difference, as you just mentioned. Well, it comes as no surprise that this pandemic has been so hard for many families across the country. Is there anything families should especially be careful to avoid at this time?
I'm so glad you asked this question. We've seen many military families get hit just as hard as the rest of the country by this pandemic. And one thing rings true when things get hard. When faced with any financial hardship, the first thing so many are tempted to do is to just stop funding their financial plans. That's usually because it's something that's so far in the future, they can't see it yet. It's not tangible. It's not here. And in most cases, that's a bad move. It's important that you don't rob your retirement plan or undermine your family's long-term financial security to cover a short-term situation. It's really tempting to think, I'll save less now, or I'll put less in my TSP now, or maybe I should just cancel my insurance, with the thought of, I'll start it again later. We all know later almost never comes. It's like, I'll start that diet tomorrow. What if, God forbid, in the meantime, something tragic happens to your family? There's a reason you put these plans in place. Right. If you consistently work with your financial coach, remembering those reasons, they can help talk you off that ledge. It's important to protect your family's long-term financial security so it doesn't diminish just due to a current situation or something that's short-term. If anything, in the hard times, it becomes more critical than ever to reach out to your financial coach and really solidify that bond in that relationship.
Thinking about the future, let's touch on a topic that can be confusing for some people within the military community, TSP contributions. Share with us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it's really important to understand the benefits that you have available to you and to understand what the TSP is really all about. So let me break it down this way. Years ago, people would go work for one company throughout their entire career in, say, the private sector. When they would retire, they would get a monthly check in the form of a pension. Private companies realized that this was getting way too expensive. People were living longer and longer in retirement than they had previously. So they switched to something called a 401k plan. With a 401k plan, it became up to the individual to contribute money. In a lot of cases, companies would match a portion of that contribution. Now, let's apply that concept to the military. The government reduced their longtime version of the government form of a pension plan by 20%. But they added the Thrift Savings Plan, or the TSP. It's the government's version of a corporate 401k. The TSP is a retirement plan that service members can participate in. If the service member is in the new blended retirement system, they are automatically enrolled in the TSP because the government makes contributions to it on their behalf. One of the benefits to military families is they can now receive matching contributions. And TSP accounts are portable. That means that when you retire or transition from the military, you get to take that TSP money with you. Another benefit is if you don't plan to serve for an entire career, 20 plus years, you still have an opportunity to build your retirement fund month to month.
Very salient wisdom right there. I know that we invest in the TSP, and what you mentioned in the previous question about doing those automatic deductions or automatic money filtering, that's exactly what we do. So we don't see it, we don't touch it, and it's almost like financial magic. It just goes in where it's supposed to go, and then it grows like it's supposed to grow.
I love
and
that.
So we don't have to worry about having that discipline or remembering to do things. It's one less thing, whether that's filtered to our insurance, TSP, or a savings account with First Command. Jennifer, I always thoroughly enjoy our conversations with all of your teammates, including yourself at First Command. And so let's say one of our listeners, or hopefully lots of our listeners, are interested in getting connected with First Command. How can someone get in touch with a First Command advisor if they want to get started with a financial plan as a military family?
Yeah, absolutely. So First Command offices are located near most of our major military installations. And our advisors are available to meet safely, either in person or remotely with everything going on. So it depends on what's happening in your part of the country. The best way to get started is to visit our website, firstcommand.com. First spelt out, FIRST. There will be an opportunity for you to go in there and find an advisor, and it'll connect you with an advisor that's closest to you in a local office. They'll reach out to you and they'll start to walk you through the journey.
Jennifer, thank you so much for coming on the show and chatting with us about such an important topic of financial security, investing in our future, especially with First Command Financial Services. I'm very confident this conversation will help so many military families take that first step towards financial stability. We wish you the best in the future and can't wait to work with you all again.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. And listeners, again, if you would like to learn more about First Command or get in touch with a financial advisor, it's very easy. You can connect with them online, firstcommand.com. Again, first is spelled out, or connect with them on social media via Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at First Command, or on LinkedIn at First-Command-Financial-Services, or even on YouTube at First Command Channel. If you're mobile, if you're doing the dishes, walking the dog, taking care of your kiddos, whatever, and you miss any of those links, no worries whatsoever. We'll have live outbound links over on ArmyWifeNetwork.com once this podcast goes live, so you can check it out there. Thanks again to First Command for sharing this empowering information with our followers, and always for sponsoring Army Wife Network. We surely appreciate their support. Now, let's swing back over to our host in the studio.
Thank you both, Jennifer Berlin, as a milspouse herself, and First Command for keeping our service members and their families at the top of the financial game. Remember, listeners, if you would like to tap into any of the amazing resources offered by First Command Financial Services, head over to firstcommand.com.